Artificial intelligence spending, is it a bust? Hey everyone, it's Wolfgang. So an article came out recently, billions are being spent on artificial intelligence data centers. What about the adoption rate? Is all that spending sensible given the adoption rate? So let's talk about the adoption rate, the global market size of artificial intelligence and how it is growing. Starting from sort of the beginning, the modern era of artificial intelligence, 2022, OpenAI introduced ChatGPT about 4 years ago. So at that time, the global artificial intelligence market was estimated to be worth about $136 billion globally, the whole AI market, okay? So now, 4 years later, 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, the global market has grown to about $243 billion, okay? So in the first 4 years of artificial intelligence, that's a total growth rate of 78%, not 78% per year, total over the 4 years, 78% growth. In order for this to be a higher number, like 100%, a doubling, right, we'd have to be we'd have to be 2 times 136 billion, and we're not quite there yet. So the artificial intelligence global market size has grown a total of 78% over the past 4 years. Let's compare that to the internet. When the internet, the modern era of the internet, starting in the mid-1990s, began. So I just want to point something out. Most of us know this, but I'll point it out. Artificial intelligence and machine learning have a history. They've been around for a while. But the practical use of it for the masses, for the average person, took off in 2022 when OpenAI released ChatGPT. That's sort of the modern era of artificial intelligence. Okay, so with the internet had been around since the late 60s, but it did not become practical for the masses, for the average person, until the mid-1990s when Mark Andreessen, Andreessen Horowitz, the venture capital firm, but he was a software engineer. When Mark Andreessen at Netscape developed the Netscape browser. It was a graphical user interface front end on the existing internet that made using the internet practical for the average person. So the modern era of the internet commenced in the mid-1990s. So what was the growth rate of that for the first 4 years? 900%. The internet took off. The global market for the internet grew in the first 4 years that it was practical, 900%. So compare the growth of artificial intelligence, first 4 years, 78%, to the internet, first 4 years. This is a small number, right? So the article was billions being spent on artificial intelligence data center. What about the adoption rate? Is that amount of money sensible given the adoption rate? Maybe not. Maybe not. So let's consider the power usage, the data centers providing power for artificial intelligence systems. Let's talk about the planned spending for artificial intelligence power. For the next 5 years, $1.4 trillion is planned to be spent on data centers and AI power sources. The anticipated growth of artificial intelligence, which in my opinion is in doubt given this comparison, but on the books now are plans to spend $1.4 trillion on powering AI systems because of the adoption rate, which is pretty low, actually. So, for example, Microsoft is reviving a failed nuclear power plant. 3 Mile Island blew up. It failed. It was a failed nuclear power plant. Microsoft believes AI is taking off so quickly. It's not, but they think it is. That they have signed a deal to revive 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant. Meta signed a 20-year deal with an Illinois nuclear power plant for the same reason. They see the adoption rate and they think they're going to run out of power. I don't think so, but Meta does. Amazon, same fear. They've committed $650 million for a Talon Energy nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania. So it's questionable. Is this sensible? The article was all this money being spent on artificial intelligence. Should we be paying attention to the adoption rate, right? So let's look at the cash being spent here. And let's look at it rationally, logically, okay? Because this is a blowout cash burn. This is just a burning of cash. This is flushing money down the toilet, and I'll explain why. Okay, so first, a technical term from computing. FLOPS, floating point operations per second. Okay, a floating point operation is a mathematical operation that a computer system does, okay? And different computer systems have different levels of performance. The more mathematical floating point operations a computer system can do per second, the more valuable it is to the users of that system. So this is like a race car. If you were bringing a race car to a track, you would prefer the race car have as much horsepower as possible, right? Floating point operations per second is for computers is the equivalent of horsepower for race cars, basically. So floating point operations per second per watt. Okay, so what this is an indication of how many watts it takes to achieve a certain performance of flops, a certain number of floating point operations per second. Okay, so if you're with me on that, in 1980, 1 watt of power bought you 1,400 floating point operations per second, that level of performance. So that was 45 years ago, right? 1980. So in 1980, 1 watt of power on your power bill bought you 1,400 floating point mathematical operations per second. Okay, so what is it now, 45 years later? The floating point operations per second per watt is 50 billion, right? So I hope you understand the implication of what I'm saying here. Because 1 watt became more and more useful. 1 watt in 1980 only got you 1,400 floating point operations per second. Nowadays, 1 watt gets you 50 billion. So computer systems have become more and more powerful and more energy stingy, more and more powerful and needing less and less power, So these nuclear power plants and all this spending is a huge blowout cash burn. And it's not clear, it's almost as if these companies, number one, are ignoring the relatively sluggish global markets growth of artificial intelligence, and they're ignoring this kind of information. It's easy to find this out. It's been known for a long time that computer systems have used less and less power and become more and more powerful in floating point operations over time. And so it's almost as if these people have too much money. The people running these companies cannot, the money's burning a hole in their pocket. They're not thinking through rationally. I mean, reviving nuclear power plants, in a few years, artificial intelligence chips are going to be so much more efficient with energy usage that these projects will probably be write-offs on these companies' balance sheets as a huge mistake. And it's not clear, it's like knock, knock, nobody's home. I don't get it. So all of this data, there's nothing secret about this. The growth rate comparison is available to anyone who wants to look it up online. And same with the performance per watt of computer systems. It's really gotten better over time. There will not be a need for nuclear power plants for artificial intelligence. I mean, if you think about the growth rate of the internet compared to artificial intelligence, this was a much higher growth rate of the market globally. Did we revive nuclear power plants for the internet? No. Was there ever even a discussion of that? No. So here's the operative thing. When humans are confronted with a resource constraint like power, minimal power, the solution is not to throw money at the problem. That is never the right solution. That's a brute force, cash burn mistake. The answer is to use cleverness. Humans are very clever animals. And to figure out ways to reduce power consumption, not to throw power at the problem. Artificial intelligence chips, if you look at Jensen Huang showing the size, these huge GPUs, these things are going to be tiny. In a very short period of time, they're going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. If you want to look into that part, you can study how much computer chips have shrank over the years. They keep getting smaller. They can fit more and more power in smaller and smaller packages and use less and less power. You can discover that also. So if you have any questions about this, it was pretty surprising to discover this article, to discover this relatively modest growth rate of artificial intelligence, because if you think about it, there's so much hype about it now. But this mistake, this spending mistake, this is going to come back to bite these companies. These nuclear power plants are a mistake. They're not going to be needed. The chips are going to shrink in size. Chip designers will make GPUs, graphical processing units, more and more efficient with power. They'll shrink in size and use less power, and this will be laughed at. I would say in less than 5 years, people will sit around coffee tables and laugh about this. This is just a huge waste of money. So I don't get it. If you have any questions about this, please post questions in the comments. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. And I really appreciate everyone watching. Have a great day.